About 1 in every 100 children in the U.S. has been abused. This is referenced from the National Institute of Justice. I'm going to discuss the effects abuse has on a child and the ways we can prevent abuse and help victims recover. Though I will be referring to studies and resources that are available online, I will mostly be speaking from a personal perspective as a survivor of abuse. To tackle this prevalent issue, I'm going to discuss the 3 aspects that surround abuse. First, the attention that is focused on the victim. Second, how the victim's ability to trust is affected. And finally, the resources that are available for survivors. Abuse has a wide and varied list of things that qualify, including physical, emotional, and sexual, as well as each area of abuse also has a wide and varied range of actions that can be considered abuse. The National Institute of Justice estimates that 2/3 of abuse victims know their abuser. And it is often the case that abuse is not a one-time incident, particularly in cases involving children, and each incident will usually involve multiple types of abuse. After being abused, victims often feel less than human, and they value themselves less than others. When I was abused, I started to put on a happy facade, and I became more giving and outgoing. These look like positive traits in a child, and so nobody noticed that something was wrong. The reality was I wanted to be happy, and I wanted someone to be there for me, so I faked happiness, and I gave of myself freely, hoping to receive something back in return. After the person who abused me left, I began plateauing. I had to work harder to fake happiness, and I was giving to others more, and it became more of a chore, but I was surviving. Things took a turn for the worse, however, when I let the authorities know what had happened to me. Before then, I was treated like everyone else, and I was making it. But afterwards, I was treated differently. No one knew how to handle me, and so I was slowly ignored. This caused me to feel neglected, and it made me think that I was alone. It is sometimes true that victims can survive on their own without anyone knowing what they're dealing with. However, if it is discovered, it can be good or it can be devastating. Unfortunately, it is negative attention that is most often focused on victims. So having the abuse get discovered and opening up about what's happened to you is often not an option for victims. I will not begin to speculate about why someone chooses to hurt a child. I was hurt, and as many times as I've analyzed the situation, I can't figure it out. With therapy, I've learned it wasn't my fault, but just knowing that it's not my fault didn't make me stop beating myself up or shutting people out. I had trusted someone, and they had used that trust to hurt me. As a result, I shut down. Most victims don't know how to feel, and they don't know who to blame, so they blame themselves, and they feel shamed. It wasn't my fault that I was hurt, and I hadn't earned shame, so why did I feel that? The reason I ended up like that was because no one had told me what I was supposed to feel or even what had happened to me. No one had described it. And probably worse than that was that no one told me not to beat myself up. No one told me it wasn't my fault. I was lost, and I was yearning for someone to pull me out of despair, but they were all afraid of me. They were afraid of hurting me more. I started healing when I began to take charge of my emotions. I was strong, so I made it through, but most victims aren't as strong as I am. They are crying in despair because no one is pulling them out. They'll walk through life happy, but then they'll go home and cry themselves to sleep. Fortunately, there are a lot of resources available. In the state of Texas, there's a fund that pays for therapy for victims. There are also support groups and churches that offer free counseling. But I think that the biggest thing that we can do for victims is to just be there and show them we care. Tell them that you care. You won't understand what's going on, but that's not what they want. They just want you to be present. It's not easy to be a victim, and it's even harder to be a survivor. You can do a lot to be there for victims. First, pay attention to what's going on. Let them know that you are present. Second, and probably the most important, is never betray their trust. And finally, keep your opinions to yourself. You don't need to tell them what you think about their situation or how it makes you feel that this has happened to them. It's not about you. Thank you.